The small human ship drifted at the edge of the Proxima system, a dark speck against the vastness of space. From a distance, it looked primitive, all harsh angles and exposed metal, nothing like the smooth bio-inspired vessels used by the advanced races of the galaxy. Its hull was scarred from micrometeorite impacts. Its engine ports glowed a dull red instead of the elegant blue shimmer of gravitic drives. Commander Lux of the Galactic Council studied the sensor readings with mild disdain. "Another human observer," he said, not bothering to hide his boredom. "Log it and continue our approach to the colony world." The command deck of his flagship, the Celestial Spear, hummed with activity. 22 other warships flanked them in perfect formation, a show of overwhelming force that had cowed many worlds into immediate submission. The flotilla moved with precision that spoke of centuries of military tradition. "The human vessel is broadcasting standard identification signals," reported Officer Tal, her six-fingered hands moving across the control surface. "They call it the Starhammer. No weapons detected beyond basic point defense systems." Lux made a dismissive gesture with one of his four arms. "Humans always choose such aggressive names for their ships, as if it will make them seem more dangerous." Several officers laughed politely at his observation. "Should we hail them?" asked his second-in-command. "Why bother? They're merely observers. The humans always send these little ships to watch our operations, hoping to learn something. Let them watch. Our mission proceeds as planned." On board the Starhammer, Captain Tom Reed watched the alien armada through the main view screen. His ship appeared small and powerless, exactly as intended. What the Council fleet couldn't see was what lay beneath the ordinary-looking hull plates, technology that no human ship had ever revealed in open space. "They've logged us and moved on," reported his tactical officer, James. "Just as expected. They're not even bothering to maintain active scans on our position." Reed nodded, his weathered face revealing nothing. At 45, he was older than most starship captains, but there was a reason he'd been chosen for this mission. He'd fought in the Mars Uprising, had seen what happened when humans were underestimated. "Keep monitoring their communications," he ordered. "Any sign they're breaking encryption?" "None, sir. They still think our comm systems are based on standard quantum entanglement. They have no idea we can read every transmission they're sending." Reed stood and walked closer to the screen, studying the graceful Council vessels. They were beautiful, deadly, and completely unaware of what they were truly facing. "What are they saying about the colony?" he asked quietly. His communications officer, Maria, looked up from her station, face grim. "It's as we suspected, Captain. They're not here for peaceful contact. They're planning to secure the planet's resources. The colonists are to be relocated if they resist." Reed's jaw tightened. 3 million human lives on that world, all at risk because the Council had found traces of rare minerals in the planet's crust. The kind of minerals they needed for their faster-than-light drives. "How long until they begin landing operations?" he asked. 4 hours, sir," James replied. "They're following standard Council protocols, establishing orbital superiority before sending down dropships." Reed turned to face his bridge crew, 12 men and women who carried the weight of humanity's future on their shoulders. "Then we have 4 hours to prepare. They ignored us because they think we're harmless." His eyes hardened. "Soon enough, they'll learn differently." Captain Reed moved through the narrow corridors of the Starhammer, nodding to crew members as he passed. Despite its small size, the ship housed 60 of Earth's finest engineers, tacticians, and combat specialists chosen specifically for this mission. "Walk with me," Reed said to his chief engineer, Ben, who fell in step beside him. They descended into the heart of the ship where the real work happened. The engine room wasn't what outsiders would expect. Instead of the noisy, steam-filled chambers depicted in old movies, this was a clean space dominated by a glossy black cube suspended in a transparent containment field. "How's our special package?" Reed asked, staring at the cube. Ben smiled, pride evident in his eyes. The quantum cascade generator is running perfectly, Captain. 10 years of secret development, and it's never looked better. He tapped something on his tablet. Power output is stable at 97% efficiency. We could take out half their fleet before they even realize what's happening. The QCG was humanity's greatest technological achievement, and its best-kept secret. While the rest of the galaxy thought humans were still using fusion drives and kinetic weapons, Earth's scientists had made a breakthrough that leapfrogged centuries of conventional development. And they can't detect it? Reed asked, though he knew the answer. The shielding works perfectly. To their scanners, we look like we're running a standard fusion reactor barely powerful enough for interstellar travel. Ben patted the wall affectionately. The whole ship is designed this way, hiding our true capabilities under layers of technological camouflage. Reed nodded, satisfied. And weapons status. All systems green. The targeting computers are tracking every ship in their fleet. We can hit any of them within 0.3 seconds of your command. Back on the bridge, Maria was listening to new council transmissions. Captain, she called as Reed returned. They've updated their invasion timeline. First wave of landing craft will deploy in 3 hours, not 4. Reed frowned. They're getting eager. Any reason for the change? Their scans show the mineral deposits are richer than initially thought. They're calling it the greatest find in 50 cycles. They've already assigned mining rights to their core worlds. James looked up from tactical. Sir, I've been studying their formation. Their flagship, that big one at the center. It's controlling the entire fleet's defensive grid. If we could take it out first, their defenses would be compromised. Reed finished. Good catch, James. Reed settled into his command chair, watching the alien armada on the main screen. The council vessels moved with arrogant confidence, completely unaware of the threat posed by the single human ship they had dismissed as insignificant. Sir, said Maria suddenly, her voice tight. New transmission intercepted. They've detected unusual energy readings from the colony. They think the settlers might have some kind of defensive capability. Are they changing their approach? Reed asked. Yes, they're going to launch a preemptive strike against the main settlement, calling it a necessary safety measure. The bridge fell silent. 300,000 people lived in that settlement. Reed's face hardened. That changes everything. We can't wait any longer. He pressed the ship-wide comm button. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Throughout the Starhammer, hidden panels slid open, revealing weapon stations. Crew members who had appeared to be simple observers transformed into combat specialists, their movements precise and practiced. Power up the QCG, Reed ordered. Bring targeting systems online. Ben's voice came through the comm. QCG powering up, Captain. You'll have full weapons capability in 60 seconds. Reed stared at the alien fleet, his mind already calculating attack vectors. They ignored us because they thought we were harmless, he said quietly. That was their first mistake. Their last will be threatening our people. Commander Lux stood on the bridge of the Celestial Spear, watching as his fleet moved into attack formation above the human colony. The settlement sprawled across the fertile valley below. Primitive structures of metal and stone, nothing like the living architecture of advanced civilizations. Pathetic, really, but the land they occupied contained resources too valuable to leave in such unworthy hands. Final attack preparations complete, reported his tactical officer. All ships report ready status. Excellent. Lux's 4 arms moved in the formal gesture of command. Begin the demonstration strike. Target their main power facility first. When they lose power, they'll understand resistance is pointless. On a secondary screen, he noticed the human observation vessel still hanging at the edge of the system. It hadn't moved or made any attempt to communicate, just watching, as humans always did, gathering intelligence they lacked the wisdom to properly use. Sir, Officer Tal interrupted his thoughts. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the human ship. Lux barely glanced up. probably trying to boost their communications to warn the colony. It won't matter. By the time any human reinforcements arrive, we'll have secured the planet. Aboard the Starhammer, Captain Reed's crew worked with quiet intensity. The ship hummed with power as the quantum cascade generator reached full capacity, feeding energy into systems that had remained dormant until now. QCG at maximum output, Ben reported from engineering. Weapons grid fully powered. Reed nodded, his face illuminated by the tactical display. Status of Council Fleet. James responded immediately. 23 ships in attack formation. They've armed weapons and are preparing to fire on the colony's power center. Estimated time to first strike, 3 minutes. Reed took a deep breath. What he was about to do would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The Council believed humans were technological infants, barely able to achieve interstellar travel. After today, that illusion would be shattered. "Open a channel to the fleet," he ordered. Maria looked surprised. "Sir, that would reveal that we can break their encryption codes." "Doesn't matter now. They're about to learn a lot more about us than that." The communication system beeped, indicating an open channel. "This is Captain Thomas Reed of the Earth vessel Starhammer," he began, his voice steady. "You are preparing to attack a civilian human settlement. This action constitutes an act of war against Earth and its colonies. Cease your aggression immediately and withdraw from this system." On the celestial sphere, Commander Lux stared at his communications officer in shock. "How are they broadcasting on our secure frequency?" he demanded. Before anyone could answer, Reed's voice continued. "You have 60 seconds to acknowledge and comply, or we will take defensive action." Lux laughed, the sound echoing across his bridge. "The single ship threatens our entire fleet. Put them on screen. I want to see these brave humans." The view screen flickered, showing Reed's stern face. The human captain sat in a chair that looked almost primitive, lacking the neural interfaces and biomechanical controls of council vessels. "Human," Lux addressed him directly, not bothering to hide his contempt. "Your courage is admirable, if misplaced. One small observation vessel cannot hope to stand against 23 warships of the Galactic Council. Return to Earth and tell your leaders that this colony now belongs to us. We may allow your people to apply for worker permits if they prove useful." Reed's expression didn't change. "This is your final warning, Commander. Withdraw now." "Or what?" Lux smiled, showing his pointed teeth. "Will you fire your primitive missiles at us? Our shields were designed to withstand attacks from civilizations far more advanced than yours." Reed checked the countdown on his display. 10 seconds remained in his ultimatum. "Ben," he said quietly into his internal comm, "target their flagship. Full power to the main cascade emitter." "Targeted and ready, Captain," came the immediate reply. Reed looked back at Lux's smirking face on the screen. "Commander," he said calmly as the timer reached 0, "you're about to learn why you should never judge a species by its appearance." Reed pressed the firing control. Fire. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Starhammer remained motionless, showing no visible signs of weapon deployment. On the celestial sphere, Commander Lux's mouth twisted into a mocking smile. "As I thought," he said to his bridge crew. "Empty threats from a..." His words died in his throat as a brilliant blue light erupted from what had appeared to be a simple sensor array on the human vessel. The beam moved faster than any weapon Lux had ever seen, crossing the vast distance between ships in less than a heartbeat. There was no time to raise shields, no time to take evasive action. The blue light struck the celestial spear's port side, but instead of exploding against their hull as expected, it simply passed through. For a second, nothing happened. Then alarms blared across every deck as the ship's systems began failing in cascading sequence. "What's happening?" Lux demanded, his forearms gripping his command chair as the lights flickered. Officer Tal stared at her readouts in disbelief. "The beam. It's not damaging our hull. It's disrupting the quantum state of our systems. Shields failing, weapons offline, engines destabilizing. Across the celestial sphere, crew members watched in horror as their advanced technology simply stopped working. Displays went dark, environmental systems shut down, and the comforting hum of the ship's gravitic engines faded to silence. On the Starhammer, Reed watched the effects of their first shot with grim satisfaction. "Direct hit," James reported. "Their flagship is dead in space. Total systems failure. No signs of recovery." "What about casualties?" Reed asked. "None detected, Captain. The QCG worked exactly as designed. It only affected their technology, not organic matter." Reed nodded. The quantum cascade generator wasn't designed to kill. Its purpose was far more elegant. It forced targeted matter to make a quantum decision, collapsing technological systems while leaving living beings unharmed. A humane weapon, but utterly devastating against a civilization that relied so heavily on advanced technology. "Sir," Maria called from communications, "we're receiving emergency signals from the Council fleet. They're in complete disarray." The view screen showed the once orderly formation breaking apart as the remaining 22 ships tried to comprehend what had happened to their flagship. Some were moving to defensive positions, others were turning to face the Starhammer, and a few appeared to be preparing to flee. "Their command structure is in chaos," James added. "With the flagship disabled, they've lost centralized control of fleet operations." Reed stood, walking closer to the tactical display. "Let's make sure they understand this isn't a lucky shot. Target their second largest vessel." The weapons officer's fingers flew across the controls. Target acquired. QCG recharged and ready to fire. Fire. Another blue beam lanced out from the Starhammer, striking a heavy cruiser that was attempting to move into firing position. Like the flagship before it, the cruiser didn't explode. Its systems simply went dark, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. Across the Council fleet, panic spread as commanders tried to make sense of what was happening. Their scans showed the human ship still running on basic fusion power, not nearly enough energy to produce the weapon they were witnessing. It defied everything they thought they knew about human technology. "Sir," one of Lux's junior officers reported through emergency backup systems, "the rest of the fleet is requesting orders. 3 ships have already broken formation and are retreating." Lux stared at the small human vessel on his failing view screen. How had they hidden such technology? The implications were staggering. If one small ship could disable his flagship so easily, what other secrets were the humans hiding? "Open an emergency channel to the human ship," he ordered, his voice barely steady. When Captain Reed's face appeared on the flickering screen, Lux noticed something had changed. The human's expression wasn't triumphant or gloating. It was resolute, determined, the face of someone who had hoped to avoid this confrontation, but was fully prepared to see it through. "You have our attention, Captain," Lux said quietly. "What are your terms?" The space around Proxima Colony transformed into a theater of confusion as the Council fleet scrambled to respond. Some ships maintained formation, others tried to target the Starhammer, and a few began retreating to safer distances. "Captain Reed." Commander Lux's voice crackled through the damaged communication system. "This attack is unprecedented. Your weapons violate 3 separate Galactic Council treaties concerning." "Treaties we never signed," Reed interrupted calmly. "Treaties we were never invited to discuss. Your terms are simple, Commander. Withdraw all forces from this system immediately and acknowledge human sovereignty over all our colonies." Before Lux could respond, a flash of energy erupted from one of the Council destroyer-class ships. The captain had acted on his own initiative, launching a full spread of plasma torpedoes toward the Starhammer. "Incoming fire," James shouted. "Impact in 6 seconds." Reed didn't panic. Defensive cascade, wide dispersal. The Starhammer released a pulse of blue light that expanded outward like a ripple in water. When the plasma torpedoes entered this field, they simply fizzled out. Their energy states collapsed into harmless particles. "Return fire," Reed ordered. Target their weapon systems only. 3 more precision beams shot from the Starhammer in quick succession. Each struck a different Council vessel, precisely disabling their weapon arrays without affecting other systems. The message was clear. The humans could have destroyed them, but were choosing restraint. On the Celestial Spear, Commander Lux watched with growing horror as his fleet's advantage evaporated. The ship's emergency lighting cast an eerie red glow across the bridge as technicians struggled to restore basic functions. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, 7 of our ships have been disabled. 5 more are retreating from the system against orders. We've lost effective combat capability. Lux's 4 hands clenched into fists. How had intelligence been so wrong about human technology? For decades, Council observers had reported that humans relied on crude fusion drives and kinetic weapons. There had been no hint of these quantum weapons that could bypass their most advanced defenses. "Commander," a voice spoke from the darkness of the bridge. It was the Science Minister, a late addition to this mission, who had insisted on observing the simple operation. "I believe I understand what we're facing." "Explain," Lux demanded. The minister stepped forward, his eyes reflecting the emergency lights. "The humans haven't been developing technology along the expected paths. While we push toward more powerful energy weapons and stronger shields, they've been exploring quantum manipulation. This isn't brute force, it's elegant. Their weapon isn't destroying our technology, it's changing its fundamental properties at the quantum level." Another blue beam lanced through space, striking a Council cruiser that had been attempting to target the colony directly. Its engines died instantly. On the Starhammer, Reed watched the tactical display as more Council ships began to retreat. "They're breaking, Captain," James reported with barely contained excitement. 11 ships have left the system. Only 9 remain, including their disabled flagship. "Open a channel to all remaining vessels," Reed ordered. When the connection was established, he spoke clearly and firmly. "This is Captain Reed. Your fleet is defeated. You came to this system believing you faced a primitive species you could easily dominate. That mistake has cost you dearly, but it doesn't need to cost lives. Stand down your remaining weapons, and we will provide assistance to your disabled vessels." The bridge of the Starhammer fell silent as they waited for a response. The crew exchanged glances, aware they were witnessing a pivotal moment in human history. For centuries, humanity had been dismissed as newcomers to the galactic stage, barely tolerated, never respected. That ended today. "Sir," Maria called from communications. "Incoming transmission from the Celestial Spear." Commander Lux's face appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of anger and reluctant respect. "Captain Reed," he said stiffly, "the Council fleet accepts your terms. We request assistance for our disabled vessels." Reed nodded once. "Assistance will be provided. But understand this, Commander, this colony and all human settlements are under our protection. The Council has underestimated humanity for the last time." The battle was over. In less than 15 minutes, 1 human ship had defeated the most powerful fleet in the quadrant. And across the galaxy, everything was about to change. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. On the Galactic Council's central world, Nexus Prime, the High Council chamber erupted in chaos as the initial reports arrived. "Impossible," shouted Council Elder Draz, slamming all 4 of his fists onto the polished table. 23 of our finest ships defeated by a single human vessel. There must be some mistake. The Grand Admiral stood silently at the center of the chamber, her scaled face showing no emotion as the Council members argued around her. When the noise finally subsided, she spoke in a calm, measured voice. "The reports are accurate. Our fleet was disabled by technology we have never encountered before. The human ship used a weapon that affected our systems at the quantum level, bypassing all our defenses." Silence fell across the chamber. For centuries, the Council had categorized humans as a minor species, barely worth monitoring, certainly not a threat. Humans were allowed to colonize a few worlds only because those planets were considered too poor in resources to interest the major powers. "How did we miss this?" asked a younger council member. "Our intelligence network spans the galaxy. We have observers on Earth and every human colony. How did they develop such technology in secret?" The Grand Admiral activated a holographic display, showing the human ship that had defeated their fleet. It looked ordinary, even primitive, nothing like the sleek, advanced vessels that marked truly advanced civilizations. "This was their strategy all along," she explained. "While we watched them build crude vessels and basic weapons, they were actually developing technology along a completely different path than we expected." She zoomed in on the human ship. "Notice the design. What appears to be primitive is actually deliberate camouflage. They wanted us to underestimate them." On another world, far from the Council's reach, Captain Reed stood in a secure briefing room, facing the projected images of Earth's highest military leaders. The mood was tense but triumphant. "The operation was a complete success," Reed reported. "The Council fleet withdrew from Proxima with minimal casualties on either side. Our colony is safe, and we've established a clear boundary line that they've agreed not to cross." Admiral Chen, head of Earth Defense, nodded approvingly. "And the quantum cascade generator?" "Performed exactly as designed," Reed answered. "The Council has no defense against it. Their ships were completely vulnerable." "What about the risk?" asked a civilian leader, her face grave. "Now that they've seen our technology, they'll adapt. They might develop countermeasures." Reed shook his head. "Our scientists don't believe that's possible in the short term. The QCG operates on principles the Council species haven't even begun to explore. According to our intelligence, they've focused so completely on energy-based technology that they've ignored quantum manipulation entirely." Back on Nexus Prime, the Council meeting had turned to urgent planning. Analysts and scientists were called in, each bringing more disturbing news. "We've reviewed all data on human technological development," reported the chief science advisor. "There is evidence we missed. Small inconsistencies in their energy consumption patterns, unusual research priorities at their universities, strange gaps in their scientific publications." "Why didn't we see this coming?" demanded Elder Draz. The science advisor looked uncomfortable. "Because we were looking for advancements we understood. The humans took a different path entirely. While we perfected plasma weapons and gravitic drives, they explored quantum mechanics in ways we never considered practical." The Grand Admiral spoke again, her voice solemn. "There is another possibility we must consider. What if the ship at Proxima wasn't unique? What if the humans have more vessels with this technology, perhaps even more advanced weapons we haven't seen yet?" The Council chamber grew deathly quiet as the implications sank in. If one human ship could defeat 23 of their finest vessels, what could a fleet of such ships accomplish? "We've made a terrible mistake," the Grand Admiral continued. "We dismissed humans as primitive because their technology didn't match our expectations. We never considered they might be advancing in ways we couldn't recognize." Elder Draz's voice was barely audible. "If they wanted to, they could strike at any of our worlds, couldn't they? Our defenses would be useless." No one answered. No one needed to. The revelation was clear. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a single day, and nothing would ever be the same again. 1 month after the battle at Proxima Colony, the Great Hall of Negotiations on Nexus Prime hosted an unprecedented gathering. For the first time in Council history, humans had been invited not as observers, but as equals. Captain Reed, now wearing the formal uniform of an admiral, led the small human delegation. The promotion had come quickly after his return to Earth, along with offers of political positions he had politely declined. He was a soldier, not a politician, but today he would help shape the future of human council relations. "The delegates from Earth may enter," announced the council speaker, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. Reed and his team walked down the central aisle, aware of the hundreds of alien eyes following their every move. Representatives from 37 species filled the tiered seating, many seeing humans up close for the first time. "They look so ordinary," whispered one delegate to another. "Hard to believe they created weapons that changed everything." At the center of the chamber stood the council elders, including Commander Lux, now demoted but required to attend as witness to the events at Proxima. His 4 arms were folded tightly across his chest, his expression stony. Admiral Reed greeted Elder Draz, who had been chosen to lead these negotiations. "The Galactic Council welcomes Earth's representatives. Recent events have prompted us to reconsider humanity's status in galactic affairs." Reed nodded politely. "We appreciate the invitation, Elder Draz. Earth has long sought meaningful dialogue with the Council." "Yes, well," Draz shifted uncomfortably. "It seems we should have been more attentive to your requests in the past." The formal proceedings began with a review of the incident at Proxima. Council records now officially recognized it as the Revelation Battle, the moment when humanity's true capabilities became known. As Reed listened to the Council's carefully worded account, he thought about the truth that only a handful of humans knew. The Starhammer had been their only ship equipped with the quantum cascade generator. Earth had gambled everything on this single encounter, knowing they couldn't fight a prolonged war against the vastly larger Council forces. The bluff had worked perfectly. The Council now believed Earth possessed an entire fleet of ships with quantum weapons, perhaps even more advanced technology they hadn't revealed yet. This misconception had brought them to the negotiating table faster than anyone had expected. "We propose a new treaty of mutual recognition," Elder Draz announced, bringing Reed's attention back to the proceedings. This treaty would formally acknowledge Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory, with full rights under Council law. Reed maintained a neutral expression, though this represented everything Earth had sought for decades. And what would this treaty require from Earth? Technical cooperation, Draz replied immediately. Shared research initiatives. Perhaps limited access to your quantum technology. A murmur ran through the chamber. Even now, they were trying to gain access to human advancements. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Reed said firmly. "Earth's defensive systems must remain our own. However, we are prepared to share knowledge in non-military fields. Medicine, environmental science, agriculture, areas that benefit all species." Draz looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. "That seems reasonable. We will include these terms in the draft treaty." As the negotiations continued, Reed exchanged a glance with his science advisor, Dr. Patel, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. They both knew the truth. Earth couldn't share quantum weapon technology because they barely understood it themselves. The quantum cascade generator had been built following theoretical principles discovered only 3 years ago. Its success at Proxima had surprised even its creators. But the Council didn't need to know that. Let them believe humanity had mastered quantum manipulation decades ago. Let them wonder what other secrets Earth might be hiding. By day's end, the framework for a new relationship had been established. Humanity would join the galactic community not as newcomers to be dismissed, but as a power to be respected. As Reed prepared to leave the chamber, Commander Lux approached him privately. "You changed everything," Lux said quietly. "With one ship, you rewrote the balance of power that has stood for 1,000 years." Reed met his gaze steadily. Perhaps the balance needed changing. Lux studied him for a moment. "The Council believes you have hundreds of ships like the Starhammer. Is that true, Admiral?" Reed smiled slightly. "What do you think, Commander?" He walked away without waiting for an answer, leaving Lux and the rest of the galaxy to wonder just how powerful humanity really was.